Hi everyone, I'm Prentis Rollins and welcome to lesson number 6 in my 10-part course on creating comics. In our last lesson we had a lightning tour of drawing the human face. And if you think that was hard, just wait till you see what I've got in store for you today. This part of drawing comics is so important, I'm actually going to spend 2 lessons covering it. It's drawing the human body. I said in the last lesson that the human face was really the main subject of all visual art, and I still think that's true. But the human body is a close runner-up. The human body is one of the most complicated things in all of nature, and artists all over the world have been trying to represent it and interpret it for thousands of years. So this might seem like a pretty scary thing to take on. But do not freak out. The comics artist's approach to drawing the human body is methodical, logical, and awesome. All it takes is lots of practice and dedication. This is a big topic and a lot to squeeze into 2 lessons. In the demonstration coming right up, I'm going to show you a pretty good way of approaching the drawing of bodies. It's rule-based and it's all about proportion and methodically building up the figure. So without wasting any more time on me yakking to the camera, let's jump right in. Feel free to follow along if you want to, or just relax and watch. Okay, let's get started. We're drawing the human figure, the male figure. It's drawing the figure can be a pretty scary thing because it is, an enormously complex mechanism, the human body. But chances are, if you're watching this course, you've been drawing people since you were a kid. Some of you might still be kids. And you've probably got an approach, a method, a system, a style that you're comfortable with. And they may even look pretty good. But what I want to tell you about now is an approach to drawing people that is systematic and scientific, and that will enable you to draw people consistently so they come out looking the same from panel to panel, which is of huge importance in comics. And it will give you some understanding of what you're doing and why you're doing it. I'm going to tell you mostly about proportions. Now, the human body of a normal person is about 7 1/2 heads tall. So here's one head length. So we're going to 2, 3, I'm just kind of guessing here. This doesn't have to be accurately. Give myself some more room. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1/2. So that's about the height of an average normal person. And we can draw midline going right up like that. And on an average person, the wrists fall just about at 1, 2, 3, 4, at line number 4. So I'm going to put 2 little circles here for the wrists. Now I'm going to put 2 little circles here for the shoulders. Okay. And directly between these 2, I'm going to put 2 little circles to denote the elbows. And now look, I can just basically start drawing a stick figure. And I'm going to put in sort of an oval shape right here for the sort of denoting the upper torso, the thorax or rib cage. And I'm going to join those like that. I'm going to put two hands here. I'm just putting in sort of wedge shapes. Okay. That's kind of just a little geometrical shape denoting the pelvis. I'm going to put in two circles about midway between this headspace right here for the knees. A couple right here for the hips. As you can see, I'm just drawing a stick figure. Now let me jump ahead. Now if I continue this for about 5 more minutes, I would have this stick figure. But I want to keep things moving along here, so I prepared this, and now I'm just going to start showing you how to start building this up. So again, we have a figure that's 7.5 heads tall. The wrists are, wait a minute. The wrists are directly on the same level as the crotch here. And then I've just drawn in these sort of wedge shapes down here indicating the hands and feet. So very simple to start with. The crucial thing I want you to remember at this point is that the figure is 7.5 heads tall. Now, I can treat this figure to begin with as just a system of cylinders. I'll show you what I mean in a minute. I'm lightening this so that I can, okay. I'm just going to start drawing in cylinders. The head is still an upside down egg shape with the crosshairs in the middle. I'm going to put a couple little bigger circles here for the shoulders. Going to draw lines like that, kind of linking up the pelvis and the thorax. Another cylinder here for the forearm. And here. Now the elbows, as you can see, right about at this level. And an interesting fact about the human body is that the navel or belly button is just about exactly equal with the level of the elbows when the arms are extended downwards like this. And the wrists are just again about exactly on the same level as the base of the crotch right there. And I'm treating the hands at this point as just these wedge shapes, simple geometrical forms. Somewhat bigger balls to denote where the knees are going to be. And then simple tubular forms for the upper legs. And again, for the lower legs. And still these simple triangular wedge shapes for the feet. Now you can see I can make there's the initial stick figure we started out with, basically just showing the anatomical landmarks, the shoulders, elbows, wrists, hips, knees, ankles. Again, the figure is 7.5 heads tall. Okay. Now, so there we now have, I suppose, what you could call a mannequin, a very elementary man, okay, composed almost entirely of cylinders, balls, and simple tubular forms and wedges for the hands and feet. But we've built this up systematically, and we have here the basic diagram of a correctly proportioned human being. Now I'm going to spend about 15 minutes just building this guy up. Let's make this light. I'm not going to spend too much time on the face because we went over that last lesson, but I'm just going to indicate to recap what we learned last time. The eyes on a normal person, remember, are just about exactly halfway down from the top of the head to the bottom of the chin. And the nose is just about exactly halfway between the eye line and the bottom of the chin. The mouth is about 1/3 the way down from the bottom of the nose to the bottom of the chin. ears are level with the nose. Now, drawing in the outlines of the neck. This is called the deltoid muscle, shoulder muscle. And this line that I'm drawing right now is the trapezius muscle. It's a big muscle of the back. Don't get too hung up on these muscle names and details that I'm telling you. Learning this stuff is, it's a long process and involves a lot of practice, but at the end of this lesson, I'm going to show you, talk about some of the major muscle masses and how they function. This, you may remember from last time, is the clavicle, collarbone, which is a pretty crucial bone in the body because it is the only bone that attaches the entire arm to your body. Is this thin, skinny little bone that runs right along there and there. It is what is attaching the skeleton of your entire arm to your body. If this bone gets broken, you got to be real careful and let it set right, because it's got a pretty important function. What I'm sketching in right now are the sides of the pectoral muscles, which on superheroes are generally pretty highly developed. Pectoral muscle is the large muscle of the upper chest, crucial for moving the arm. Let's take a look at this. Okay. And the pectoral muscle, when the figure is at rest like this, just standing there, is just about level with where the deltoid comes down here. What I'm indicating here is the bicep. Bicep is a long flexor muscle on the inside of the upper arm. What I'm indicating here is the rib cage. Here again is the navel, right about there, the belly button. You can see I'm just making these tubular lines a bit more organic, a bit more alive. And you have to spend a certain amount of time kind of, it helps if you're able to take a life drawing class where you're able to draw actual human models in a studio. That helps a lot with figure drawing because then you get to develop a real sense for what's going on underneath the surface. For example, this little bump right here and right here, that's the end of the humerus, which is the arm bone, okay? Just kind of indicating some musculature on the arms there. Side of the stomach. These little bumps right here are an indication of the pelvis bone, which on really fit and strong people you can sort of see on their abdomen. I'm going to kind of indicate here the pectoral muscles, which also on really muscular developed people you can kind of see. All right, this guy is not naked, so I'm going to start to put indications of clothing on him. And I'm going to raise the navel. Wrist bone. So I'm making these hands more organic, softer, but you can see that they still can be sort of analyzed as simple wedge shapes. If we have time at the end of this lesson, I'll talk more about hands. Hands are one of the harder parts to learn because they're very complicated. But even they can be mastered. These are tendons on the inside of the wrist that I'm indicating. Just making these forms more organic, more rounded. Put the kneecap in, the kneecap or patella. These muscles that I'm kind of indicating right now are the quadricep. Very large muscle mass on the front of the legs. Kind of indicating the ankle bones here. The inside ankle, this one and this one, are always a little bit higher up than the outside ankle. There's actually two bones inside the lower leg, and one of them is responsible for one ankle and the other one for the other. You can see these are also little indications of bone. There's a giant bony mass in the knees where the bones of the thigh, it's the femur bone, meets the bones of the lower leg. And the patella is a oval bone that covers the front of the knee. This line kind of running on, swooping gracefully inwards here and here. That's a line caused by one of the lower leg bones. And if you look at your own lower leg later on, you can see it and you can definitely feel it. But the lower legs, as you can see, they kind of make this really graceful inward kind of movement. And the calf muscle, when you're looking at the figure from the front, is higher on the outside, lower on the inside. Now I'm just kind of going to draw in some 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 toes. Feet, like hands, are fairly complicated things and harder to learn to draw right. It's one of those things where, once again, there's just no shortcut to practice. Let's take a look. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. Okay, so here's the same guy. I did this a little earlier just so that we had a neater, more finished version. But again, as you can see, he is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 1/2 heads tall. And once again, this right here is the clavicle, very important bone. It holds the entire arm to the rest of the skeleton. Pectoral muscles right here. Big, powerful muscles of the upper torso or thorax. On superhero characters, the pectorals are usually very well developed because that makes the character look very strong. These little lines right here are not actually ribs, they're muscles. They're these muscles that kind of attach to the ribs. And on very muscular people, they are strongly defined and visible. They look like ribs, but they're not. They're muscles. On superhero characters, they're always pretty visible. And a good way to remember where they go is if you imagine a little circle right there at the pit of the neck and kind of drew a curving line going right through the midpoint of this pectoral, right through the midpoint of that pectoral. That's where those abdominal muscles would fall, right there. This is an indication of the rib cage. You can see I put these rendering lines as a gentle and easy way of indicating that light is coming from above. Little indication here of the abdominal muscles. Bicep right here. And remember the elbow, which is right about here, is on the same level as the navel or belly button, which is right about there. And the wrists are exactly level with the crotch right there. Here's those two indications of the pelvic bone, which on very fit people and superheroes is, you can actually see it. Once again, this is the kneecap, quadricep, yeah, right here. Huge muscle mass of the thigh. Whole thing is like that. And on weightlifters and superheroes, also very, very well defined. Here's that curving line coming from the kneecap down to the inner ankle. Lovely, graceful curving line. Calf muscle, higher on the outside, lower on the inside. Okay. Oh, and deltoid muscle, deltoid. And bicep. Now, I said that your average real-life human being is about 7½ heads tall. When you might notice, if you're reading comic books, at least Western comic books, frequently the characters, especially the superheroes, are much taller. They're frequently 8, 9, sometimes 10 heads tall. And the fact is, the more elongated a figure is, the more imposing and powerful they look. And the fewer heads tall a character is, the shorter the character will look. So that's the basic approach. It's an approach you can take when you're studying the figure. You can train yourself to kind of analyze characters into very simple forms, starting with, you can consider them as a stick figure, and then build them up into a system of balls, cylinders, and tubular forms until finally you get a pretty realistic looking person. What I wanted to show you next is drawing the figure in motion, in a more dynamic pose. And so that's what I'm going to talk about for a few minutes. Let's go back to blue line. I already started sketching this in just to save time, because we have very limited time here. So what I'm kind of imagining here is sort of a warrior character holding some kind of weapon. Knees, ankle, pelvis, upper leg, foot, and this arm that I'm doing right now is a little bit foreshortened. See how short this is compared to it's angled away from us. Now I'm kind of taking these stick figure forms and turning them into elementary tubular forms. And notice this kind of sweeping line of the back, okay? And how you get this very dynamic, lovely line. When I'm drawing figures in action poses like this, I'm always kind of trying to get this effect, some kind of really dramatic and dynamic line of the spine of the person. And this kind of acts as a counterpoint, a counterweight, trying to create a very balanced figure. Yeah, so here you can see again. Now I'm making, in this second sketch I did before class, I was making the forms just more organic, more true to actual human musculature. This is the final drawing of this character that I did before class. And I put in this explosion, as you can see. So he's you know, a science fiction character, a soldier in some sort of futuristic war. And I gave him this weapon, which I just made up, but it's, you know, it's kind of similar to, in some ways, to real life handheld, you know, weapons and weapons that I'd seen in science fiction movies. And I put in this explosion kind of behind him just to make it more, for a more powerful, compelling image. Let me, I just want to talk to you for 2 minutes, which is about all we have left, about hands. Again, hands are, you know, they're very complicated, but they can be treated as geometrical shapes. They can be analyzed, you know, kind of scientifically into simple forms. Here I'm just making a sort of flattened but slightly curving wedge shape, and that's the basic form of the hand. And then the fingers can be treated as cylinders and balls. It's one finger, second finger kind of hidden behind, third finger, fourth finger or pinky. Thumb back here. A good way to get used to and comfortable with drawing hands is to basically draw, if you're right-handed, draw your own left hand quite a bit. Just do numerous quick sketches of it. You always have a model who's willing to pose for you. And then typically here's the arm, and the wrist kind of goes down a bit, like that. knuckles. And these lines on the back of the hand are just lines indicating the presence of tendons. Thumbnail. Fingernails. Okay. All right, guys, thank you for your attention, and this concludes our first figure drawing demonstration. Now, I said in there that I was going to talk a little more about muscles, which are pretty important if you're learning to draw superheroes. Muscles work by pushing and pulling, by extending and flexing. If you curl your arm with a weight like this, the bicep muscle is going to get stronger because that's the muscle that's flexing, doing the work. Here we see the male figure we were working on in today's demonstration with some of the main muscle masses in color. Now, you don't have to be an expert in anatomy, but as a comics artist, you should be aware of these masses and what they do. I'll quickly run through them. A is the sternomastoid, that long neck muscle that we learned about a little in our lesson on drawing the head and face. B is the deltoid muscle, which lifts your entire arm upwards. It's called the deltoid because of its triangular shape. C is the pectorals, or muscles of the chest. These pull the arms inwards. D is the bicep muscle of the upper arm. It helps to curl the lower part of the arm upwards. E is the abdominal muscles. It works to help the entire abdomen curl inwards. F is the obliques. They work to twist the upper torso from side to side. G is the forearm flexors. They work to make the hand curl inwards towards the arm. H is called the sartorius muscle. This is the longest muscle in your entire body. It helps with moving the entire leg inwards. And I is the quadriceps muscle. It's a huge muscle mass that works to straighten out the leg if it's bent. We're going to be working on drawing the female figure in the next lesson, but here's a little preview. Here we're seeing a female figure from the side, also with some important muscle masses colored in. I'll run through them quickly. The muscles of men and women are all the same, by the way. That's why it doesn't matter which you're looking at. A is the obliques again, which work to twist the upper torso from side to side. B is the latissimus dorsi, or lats, a large flat muscle of the back which works to pull the arms back. C is the triceps, a large muscle that works to straighten the arm out. D is the forearm extenders. These actually work to move your fingers. If you put your left hand on your right arm and wiggle your fingers, you can feel this muscle working. E is the gluteals, or muscles of the butt. This is the single largest muscle mass in your body. F is the hamstring. This helps your leg to curl inwards. G is the calf muscle, which helps you point your foot and toes. And H is the long muscle of the lower leg. This works to lift your foot. Okay, guys, that's it for this lesson. I know it's been a lot, and I appreciate your sticking with me. I want to really drive home the point that there are no shortcuts in learning to draw people well. You have to practice a lot. Memorize the basic proportions I've talked about, and draw a lot. Draw yourself in the mirror. Draw your mom and dad, your friends, anyone. When I really got serious about learning to draw people right, I started copying drawings by famous master painters and artists. And I took a lot of drawing from life classes. Here's a few samples. You can also copy photographs out of magazines or off the internet. You can go to art museums with your handy pencil and sketch pad and just spend a few wonderful hours drawing statues that you see there. There's never a shortage of things to draw when you're learning to draw people. For our next lesson, we're going to have part 2 of drawing the human figure. We're going to look at the differences between drawing male and female characters, and we're going to do something extra fun. We're going to take a crack at drawing an inhuman figure. Until I see you again, be well, keep practicing, and bye-bye for now.